Good evening and welcome back to another episode of What's Your Story? Tonight we are sitting down with our very close neighbor here on Main Street, Kelly Graham.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
So you moved here in 2020 for good.
Yes.
So you didn't grow up around here?
No, I did.
You did,
up here.
okay.
I grew up here from when I was born until through college.
Okay.
On the Kennebunkport side of the river. And then I lived in New York for 13 years in New York City. And right before COVID, my husband and I had decided to move back. I was pregnant. And so literally, I think it was February 29th of 2020, we moved back to Maine.
Oh my.
Yes, it was an interesting time to move.
I bet. And you have, is it two?
One daughter.
One daughter.
That's
okay.
4.
Okay. I know I've met her. I thought you had another little one.
She comes a lot. Sometimes we have cousins as well.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. So, and your parents are right around.
My parents are on the corner, so we are neighbors, which
how nice
is great.
Yeah.
Probably too close for my husband, but we all get along well, so that's great.
So, being in New York, what was that like? Because you're a mover and a shaker.
Yeah, I mean, it was great for a long time. I mean, I loved being in New York, especially when you're young. I had a lot of friends there in the beginning, going out and the nightlife, and it was great for a long time. But then after a certain amount of years, a lot of your friends start leaving, and you have fewer and fewer people to go out with.
Yeah.
And it's just so expensive when you're living in Manhattan for a long period of time. We got to the point where we realized we were just working to live in the city, and we weren't really enjoying the city as much. We like to be outside. I'm a big tennis player. I grew up playing tennis. My husband is as well. It was really hard to do that there, and we just wanted a different pace of life. So he, ever since we started dating, had started to come up here and loved it so much and was really excited about the move, which was great. So it made it a really easy sell to get him here.
Oh, that's so good. And so now you can sort of recreate that with your child. And so did your daughter go, is she going to be getting ready to go to school?
She's going to pre-K in the fall, which is a big deal. She's very excited, what she calls big girl school. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I mean, my mom went to high school here. We had some of the same teachers, which is really interesting. So when I was in high school, there were teachers that she had as well. I don't know if that will be the dynamic when Sienna gets to high school, but it's fun growing up in a small town and having that continuity.
Yeah, and your dad had a pretty big job, right, here in town. Could you talk a little bit about what?
Yeah, so my dad helps manage the estate at Walker's Point. So he's not an original Mainer, but we actually make fun of him a lot because he's from New Jersey. So we joke about that with him. But he's been in Maine for a long time, and I feel like he's kind of the unofficial mayor of Kennebunkport. He knows everybody.
So I got to meet him, he would stop by and sometimes have, run an errand and drop books off or things like that. And then I think it must have been when you moved here, we started seeing your family showing up with a little one, and so it was just really nice. And now I see them all the time.
Yes,
wherever. Yes. So it's really great.
We come to story time. We're big fans of Miss Terry. Sienna writes little notes to her, and they have a really cute relationship. But we love the library. I mean, I grew up going to this library, so it's really special to bring my daughter here now.
Yeah. Can you talk about what you did for your career in New York?
So right out of college, I actually worked for Ferrari. So I worked in automotive, which was a very interesting experience. I did marketing and events and branding for them for a few years. Really introduced me to the world of luxury, which kind of became a signature in my career. And then I transitioned to American Express, and I've been at American Express for the last 15 years in a variety of roles, anything from working on Centurion card, which is like the very secretive black card, to co-brand managing the Marriott relationship.
Oh, wow.
And then currently I'm more on the dining side. So I transitioned to Resi, which is an Amex-owned company, a couple of years ago, and I lead a very interesting team where we combat a lot of dining abuse and fraud that happens in the dining space.
Oh my gosh. So like an example of that.
There's a big issue, especially in New York City and in major cities where you have, very highly sought after restaurants where there's a lot of demand, where people sell reservations. So they write bots, they write scripts, they scoop up all these free reservations, and then they sell them, they monetize them on third-party platforms. It's basically a form of scalping. But it's a violation of our terms, obviously. There are a lot of illegal components to it. So it's something that I've been working for the last 2 years to try to stop.
Wow.
Recently, I helped lobby for a legislative change in New York State to pass a new bill to make it illegal, which was a really exciting moment. I didn't think my career would lead me to politics and helping to pass bills, but there's been a lot more written about the topic, in major news publications and the harm that it does to restaurants, because restaurants ultimately really suffer financially from a lot of that activity.
Right. And you wouldn't think that even is a thing, right? So how do you catch people? I mean,
people are willing to do anything to make a buck. I think, unfortunately, that's the reality. I think you've seen similar patterns with ticketing, when you think about Taylor Swift and people really creating a commodity around, ticketing, resale. There's a lot of things that we do, both on the technology side to track user activity. There's some activity that is not human, so you can tell that it's a bot, where they might be hitting our site, thousands of times a minute. No human can do it that fast. There's a lot of work that we do to block, different IP addresses without giving away too much information. We also take legal action in some cases. In some situations, there's actual fraud that's being, that's happening. So there's a lot of different work streams that are done, but at the end of the day, we try to secure the platform and make sure that the real user that just wants to go out to dinner can get the reservation that they want and doesn't have to pay for it.
Right, right. Now, is that what you studied when you went to school?
No, not at all.
Did you go to Vassar?
I went to Vassar.
Okay,
I played tennis at Vassar. I was a geography and anthropology major.
Oh, okay. Very different then.
Very different. I've always had a real fascination with just the world and understanding different cultures, and so I've traveled a lot. I think I've been to over 50 countries at this point in my life.
Wow.
But Amex, it has a very large travel tie, and in some of my roles at Amex, I definitely was much more engaged on the travel side. So I would say not exactly what I studied, but at least there are some connections there.
Yeah. Wow. What's your favorite place you've ever been? Can you say that? Like,
it's so tough.
Probably many.
I'll give you a couple. I have a fondness. I've been to Africa several times. I really liked Namibia. I thought it was just a very different place when you grow up in like a New England coastal community, and then you go somewhere that's just very much desert. And you feel kind of like you're at the end of the world.
Yeah.
That was a really interesting experience. Really enjoyed Peru as well. And then I actually brought my mom with me to Morocco. And we went camping in the Sahara Desert, which was a really special experience and not something I really thought my mom could handle, but she did pretty well through that.
Now, what took you to those places? Was it work?
Some of it was work. I mean, I've had the privilege while being with Amex to travel to a lot of places, which is really cool. Yeah. But a lot of it was just personal travel and just wanting to explore and see new places.
Yeah. So, and have you taken your daughter to?
She's been to a few places. She's only 4, so she's getting to the age where we can start to maybe be a little bit more adventurous. She's been to Canada to visit her cousins, and then we've done a few island adventures. We've been to Turks and Caicos and Grand Cayman. She really likes to swim, so we typically go to like a tropical place with a pool. Yeah. But I'm hoping as she gets a little bit older that we can really get on some longer flights.
Yeah. So your husband, what does he do for?
My husband is in energy,
okay.
And I am not great at explaining what he does, but I will try. He brokers electricity futures, so it's looking at the future demand for buyers and sellers for electricity because it cannot be stored.
Wow.
And that's kind of the line that I have been given that I can explain because I don't understand it super well. It's a very different industry from mine, but also a very interesting career.
And what was your first date?
Our first date, well, so ironically, my husband and I were neighbors. We didn't know that at the time, and so we met online, and we went to just a neighborhood place that was kind of like right between our 2 apartments, and we didn't realize, but we probably had walked by each other like 1,000 times in New York City. But we had lunch. I think it was January. He's gonna make fun of me. I think it was January 2nd. I think January 1st that year was a Sunday, so we had the Monday off, and so we went out to lunch.
Oh, nice. Where'd you go?
It was called the Writing Room.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, sorry. It was supposed to be, this is a long story. It was supposed to be the Writing Room, but they were closed for New Year's. So then we went to a place across the street. It was called Café Dalsace, which is still open in New York. It's on 80, I think it's on 88th and 1st. And I recently went back there for the first time with some of my girlfriends when I was in New York. It looks a little different than it did back then, but it's nice that it's still there.
Do you miss the city?
I miss pieces of it.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I get to go back a few times a year. Andrew, my husband, we both have jobs based in New York, so we both go back and forth. He was there last week. I think last year I went 8 times. This year I've been 3 or 4 times. So it's enough. I get to go. I get to see friends. I get to go out to the restaurants, and then I come home, and then I enjoy being at home.
it does get a little hustle bustle, and I think probably during the pandemic you sort of felt that, if you had to stay inside and all those things that just kind of didn't allow you to love the parts of the city that that you did. So Central Park, a lot of going through there and
Love Central Park. I had a dog in New York for most of the time that I was there, so I always lived near the park, and I would spend a lot of time walking with him in the park. Played a lot of tennis in Central Park.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know, but there are tennis courts in the park. There's like 30 of them. So my husband and I played a lot of tennis. So I have a lot of fond memories in Central Park in particular, and it's always a special place to go back. We've taken Sienna. There's a carousel as well, and so she's ridden the carousel, which she really enjoyed.
So as far as local opportunities, do you do any volunteering? Are you on committees?
I'm on committees. I'm currently on the board at the River Club.
Okay.
River Club has played a big part in my life in
Yeah.
teaching me how to play tennis, and so I'm actively engaged there. There's some volunteering that we do in the community as well. It's something that we want to get more involved in for sure, now that we've become a little bit more established, but certainly especially through Rotary and some of the work that they do with children in the community, something that we would like to be more involved with.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
But time, there's time for that.
Yes.
So, and like how many hours, what's your typical work week like?
It really depends. There's a lot of fires in my job. I joke that there's not really a good day because there's either a problem going on or you're trying to fix a problem, and sometimes there are unforeseen consequences to how you have tried to fix that problem. So I joke a little bit about that. Being, close to the hospitality and restaurant industry as well, like you do get more nighttime contact that is not ideal for me. But I will say I have a really nice work balance right now. There have been times at Amex where I worked, a lot more, 10, 12-hour days. My day is very normal right now. I probably work 7 hours a day, and it's pretty manageable.
Oh, that's all
I just
good.
have to occasionally respond to things off hours and give direction when we need to do something.
Yeah, and that's got to be so hard when, you have a daughter and you want to spend time, and these are the precious times that you never get back, right? So, but good for you for trying to figure out that balance, and so because it takes a long time, I think, for some people to get there.
It took me a long time. I am very upfront with my team at work. When I was earlier in my career at Amex, I worked a lot, and I don't know that it was worth it. When I look back, I don't know why I did that. I don't think it necessarily got me any further than I would be today. It was just lost hours. So I really try to encourage my team to understand the boundaries and have a life and have a personal life and put the hours in during the day, but then, go enjoy your life outside of that.
And that's good. Good modeling, because I think that, sometimes if you have somebody that's just working all the time, and that's sort of the pressure that you put on your team. So good for you for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
I'm sure they appreciate it too.
I hope so. When my husband and I started dating, I was actually supporting a very large negotiation at Amex, and I was working extremely long hours. I actually pulled all-nighters in the office, which is a really unpleasant thing if anyone's ever had to do that. And I think he probably thought that I was crazy, but he stuck around through that time, and now it's a lot more quiet.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. So do you have any plans coming up, big trips?
We don't have any really big trips. We don't really travel in the summer a lot because it's so nice here. So we really
Maine
like
is
to
hard
enjoy.
to leave.
We really like to enjoy going to the beach. We spend a lot of time at the beach. I'm looking at some things for maybe Christmas time, maybe a tropical vacation of some time. And then next year I would really like to do a longer trip. I really want to go to Europe for a few weeks. So something that's a little bit more involved.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. Like, where do you think?
I really want to go to Italy. I've been to Italy several times, but I would really like to go rent a house and be there for ideally 3 weeks and really have a chance to explore, feel more immersed in the culture, not feel as much like a tourist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people say. If you have the time, that's the thing to do, because otherwise you're just getting on a plane and, after a few days and coming back, and it doesn't, for all the travel, it doesn't feel like you've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the one benefit of COVID too, is that now there's so much more flexibility to be able to be virtual. So that kind of a trip might not have been possible a few years ago, but for us, we both work virtually, so we have a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, that's right. So for other young families like yours, moving to Maine, moving to this area, I see the beauty, but I also see like the community and what that means when you know your neighbors, friends of your children in school and whatnot. And we have this really big problem here with trying to get people to move to our area. Do you have friends that would love to relocate up this way? And
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I actually have several people that I went to high school with that have children the same age as Sienna, and they are classmates and have moved back. A lot of people who grew up here that did the same thing that we did,
Yeah.
were able to buy a house. I mean, we were really fortunate because we were able to purchase our house at a time where the prices were a little bit different and the demand wasn't quite as high as it is now.
Yeah, yeah.
I think now it is really challenging, and I think things like interest rates and just the general low inventory has made it really hard for families.
Well, and hopefully that it's one of those things, right?
Right.
Because when I first started working here at the library, I remember the children at Consolidated School, the numbers were over 300. And now it's a very small number in the time frame. But yet, I think the pandemic allowed for people that are, that you grew up here and you came back and now you're going to stay. So I saw a lot of folks that moved in with their parents and they could work remotely, but then they figured it out and how to, make it work so that they're here. And I hope that that continues. So
I hope
'cause
so.
It's just such a beautiful community to be in.
I think the pendulum has kind of swung in different directions for virtual. What I've noticed, especially maybe 6 months ago, it was really moving more towards coming into the office and a real push to come into the office. And it seems to be stabilizing a little bit now. So I hope that flexibility continues for people.
Yeah, I hope so too. So what are you going to do for the rest of the summer? Tennis, beach.
Trying to get back into tennis, a lot of beach, and hopefully just enjoying. We bought a new e-bike with a little seat on the back, so I take Sienna. We ride around the port, so you'll probably see us on our bike a lot.
I think I saw you Saturday.
We were at the garden tour. She loved the garden tour.
Oh, good.
We do a lot of gardening at our house, actually. So,
that's so
we have a lot of
great.
vegetables that we grow, and she helps me. She's really into the peas right now. We have peas growing, and she takes them and opens them and then eats them. So we spend a lot of time in our garden as well.
That's great. What else do you have?
We have a lot of things. I mean, we have a lot of tomato plants. I think we have maybe 19 tomato plants this year, so we grow a lot of tomatoes. We have green beans. We eat a lot of green beans, and she eats a lot of green beans. Radishes, beets, we have peppers, we have zucchini. What else do we have? That's most of what we have. Then we have a lot of flowers. She did a rainbow garden this year, so we have it basically goes from yellow to blue. And we have a little
that's
rainbow
wonderful.
garden. Every year we do a little bit more, so we're kind of running out of space though. We don't have a huge amount of land, so I joke that we need to buy a plot of land so we can have a full farm.
When I was over at Consolidated School the other day, I was so happily surprised to see the beds of vegetables that they have kind of on the side. And I think they're so important to teach that. We were just talking to a gentleman that was, he helps people with finance and agriculture, and to know where your stuff's coming from it's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and I love having a child and teaching them how you grow food and having more of an appreciation from where your food comes from, but also then eating the food and not wanting to waste it. So those are some of the themes that we definitely talk about.
Yeah, well, that's so great. Well, congratulations to you on your career and your life. I mean, it's just I am in awe of what you do.
Thank you.
So, and we also we really appreciate just one quick thing about talking about our annual author event that we have at the River Club in June. We are so appreciative of the River Club opening its doors to us, and it's our big annual fundraiser. So, and I think was it our 13th year this year, Mike? So Mike Kelly was on our board. He records those sessions at the River Club, so he comes in and sets them up. But yeah, I think it was our 13th, so we really appreciate you all and your support for this library. So
thank you. Yeah, it's such an important part of the community, and we're happy to help support it.
Well, thank you. And maybe we'll get your husband on here one of these days he can tell us his story.
I'm sure he would love to.
And your daughter.
Well, she would talk a lot, I can tell you that much. She has a lot to say.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being with us tonight, and we'll see you right back here next time for another episode of What's Your Story?